Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Joanne Smedley, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Squadron Leader Leo Hasler. We warmly welcome the family of Private Claude Anthony Skimmings, whose story will be told shortly. We are honoured to acknowledge Dr. Balázs Orbán, Deputy Minister of the Prime Minister's Office, Hungary, His Excellency Dr. István Mikola, Ambassador of Hungary to Australia, and the accompanying delegation. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family, visitors, and students on behalf of the following school. From Western Australia, Rehoboth Christian School, Secondary Department of Kenwick. Please stand and join in the singing of the National Anthem. Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Claude Anthony Skimmings. Claude Skimmings was born in 1919, the eldest child in the large family of Charles Andrew and Mary Eva Skimmings. Claude was born in Lismore, where he spent his early childhood, before spending some time at Branxton and the Hunter River. He eventually moved to Burrumba, where he was employed as a labourer for 7 years by Mr. O'Keefe, who was well known in the area as the local bandmaster. On the 24th of April 1941, Claude was mobilised for service, initially as part of the 34th Battalion. He was soon transferred to the 53rd Battalion and taken on strength at Ingleburn. While at Ingleburn, he began regularly writing letters to his family at home. These consistently emphasised Skimmings' forbearance and good humour. "Keep your chin up and keep smiling, as I feel as happy as Larry. They've christened me Happy here now, so you may see that I am not downhearted over anything." At the start of November, the 53rd was reinforced with men from a number of other militia units, and in December, just before the battalion was set to sail on the transport Aquitania, it received over 100 18-year-olds who had just been called up for duty. Some of these young conscripts were given a leave pass for one night, embarking the next day. Others were selected the day the Aquitania sailed and did not get a chance to say goodbye to friends and family. More surprises were to follow. While at sea, the men learnt they were not going to go to Darwin, as they had earlier been told, but to Port Moresby. The Aquitania arrived on the 3rd of January 1942, and the 53rd, as part of the defence of Port Moresby, was assigned to the area of Bora, Napa Napa and the Napa Napa Peninsula. While this was the worst area for malaria, and the battalion suffered badly from the disease over the following months, Skimmings appears to have avoided the worst. Apart from contracting dysentery soon after his arrival, there is no record of him having been hospitalised for malaria. While in Moresby, the battalion members received minimal training, with the 53rd mainly used for work parties. The battalion did not receive any major training until July, when Bravo and Charlie companies were sent to the Kokoda area. Poorly trained and ill-prepared, the 53rd went into battle against the experienced Japanese troops and did not fare well. The Japanese infiltrated the Australian lines and bypassed some of their positions altogether. In one ambush, the battalion commander and several other members of his headquarters staff were killed. After this, the 53rd was merged with the 55th Battalion to form the 55th 53rd Battalion. The two had been previously merged, but had been temporarily separated before Skimmings was mobilised. By then, Skimmings had been nicknamed Skimmo by the mates who shared a tent with him. His letters home acknowledged the constant stress and danger posed by inhospitable conditions, mosquitoes, poor diet, monotonous days and nights, and the threat posed by the enemy. But they inevitably ended with a stoic assertion that things could be worse and injunctions to his family to keep your chin up. In his last letter home, dated the 3rd of December 1942, he wrote, "I thought I would drop you a line and let you know that I am still in the land of the living and feeling happy about everything." In early December 1942, the 55th 53rd was sent to Sananda Track to join the fighting and the drive to the Japanese beachheads at Boona and Gona. On the 7th of December, the battalion dispatched a single company to launch a diversionary attack, while the rest of the battalion supported the 49th Battalion's attack. Coming up against strong defensive positions, the Australians were beaten back and the 55th 53rd suffered 130 casualties. Among the dead was Private Claude Skimmings. He was 23 years old, survived by his parents, 6 sisters, and 1 brother. Today his remains lie in the Saputo War Cemetery beneath the inscription chosen by his grieving family, "May he rest in peace." His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my left, amongst almost 40,000 Australians who died in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Claude Anthony Skimmings, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.